Good morning, Frank. Thanks very much indeed for coming along, spending some time with us on TRBusiness on our film programme. Now, one of the things that obviously is crucial to the whole industry at the moment is representation, and nobody could say that there's anybody better than you to do that. I think everybody's very pleased that you're in this role. But the Duty Free World Council, as I knew it, was there, then it wasn't there, and now it's there again. I mean, what is the Duty Free World Council about today, Frank?
No, it's here now.
Okay.
And I think it's here to stay.
Good.
And I think this time around, I think it's very solidly based. At the end of the day, a council like the Duty Free Council, a World Council, is completely dependent on, obviously, all the regional associations signing up to that. And that's what has happened. So we have all the regional associations have fully signed up to the council and are fully participating in it. And I think that's really important. And it gives us, if you like, a basis of legitimacy to go out and talk to people and do things. What's it about now? I think the important thing for the council is to establish itself as a credible, something credible for the industry. And what's always been, I think, an important consideration is this question of where does the council start and finish relative to the other associations. And it's important that the council is not seen as somehow as in any way intrusive to associations. So the regional associations have their jobs to do. And that's very clear, it's very clearly defined. They have regions, they operate in them, they do the lobbying, they do the political work, that's their job. The council is, if you like, trying to coordinate that and facilitate that. And so my focus in the council to date, since last March, has been to try and focus on solid, substantial work and activities that are designed to help the associations and provide material for them, provide ammunition for them in argumentation and so on. So that's the focus of the council for now, as I see it. And that over the next year, 2 years, that the council will produce some solid material, solid results, solid studies that the industry generally can use. And I think on that basis it gives the council a very solid platform to go forward on, and a very sound legitimacy, as it were, in the industry.
Right. So in terms of your priority list at the moment, what are the things that are top of your pile on your desk?
Well, we've got we've commissioned some consultants, Harry Bush and Daniel Story, in the UK to work on, first of all, establishing or building an industry database, the structure of a database, which we will then populate through the office in Paris. And that's a very important, I think, start, because this industry, when you look at the industry and you sort of scratch below the surface a little, we really don't know a lot about ourselves. And we are hard pushed when, say, the general sort of media, for the non-trade media, the general media, ask you some pointed questions about, well, what's the size of the industry? How many people are employed? Don't know. And that's not a good position to be in.
It's not very convincing, is it?
It's not. No. So that's, I think, is an important priority. So that database is not just about numbers. It's not all about numbers. It's about statistics on terms of turnovers. It's more about how many people are in it, how many companies are in it, how many people are employed in it, and that's all going to give us then credibility when it comes to talking to government and to regulatory authorities and MEPs and so on. That's the first point. The second part of that process of study is, out of that database, you build a profile of the industry that you can use, Doug, when you're talking about the duty-free industry. Duty-free industry is X. It's this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And that's solidly based material and fact. And thirdly, and this is important, is we need as an industry, I think, some soundly based economic impact studies that show what is the impact of this industry in a place. What impact does it have beyond the immediate airport shop? So it provides employment, but it also provides access to local producers. It provides a marketplace, for instance, for small or SMEs to get their product they're onto an international stage with very little cost in distribution. It gives them access to an international market passing through. And there are lots of examples in our industry of brands that have been built and are now international brands on the domestic markets, but they've been built through this business. And so our economic impact studies are going to try and focus on that. They'll be obviously based with a series of facts which are coming out of a survey, but then coupled with that, we'll have a series of case studies within that, which will be very specific. So we have company X, company Y, airport, this airport, a big airport, revenues from retailing, what does it do? It helps to build the infrastructure in this particular airport, and in this airport, the pier and the new shopping area was funded by the retailing income in this airport. And in the case of a producer, that this producer has grown into a very large business, but it's been built through getting their products into X airport, into X shops, and so on. So you have a series of case studies.
So it really is an exercise in building the credibility and the reach of the industry, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if we're starting, and there may be some, there is I suppose you could argue that you don't want this council to be Eurocentric. It's a global council. And so the study and the database is obviously global and will be filled with global information from all around the regions and so on. The first of the economic impact studies, however, is European. And it's deliberately so because there's the upside to that. There is a downside, and that is that it could be seen as Eurocentric. Why are we starting with Europe? But the upside to it is that we have a very well-established network in Europe of information sources. The consultants have already done a major study for ETRC on their passenger rights, in which they actually made a lot of contacts already, and they can go back to them.
So there's momentum then.
So we have momentum, and we have the possibility of getting a very large base of information very quickly. And that's the reason, and I think that's a really sound enough reason to do it this way, despite the downsides. But once that's done, and I expect and hope that will be done by spring of next year, the plan is to present the first draft of that study at the next board meeting of the council, which is in Orlando in March. We then move on to other regions and make decisions about what other regions and where exactly do we do other economic impact studies in the Americas, in Asia Pacific, in the Middle East. And we have to look at how do we base those studies? Are they country-based? Are they airport-based? Are they complete region-based? And that's still to be debated. I have worked out a very clear protocol with the consultants about confidentiality. And that applies to the council and to the consultants. So any information given to the council to our surveys will be either through the council, through the consultants directly, or through Kay Goyal, who's working for me in the office in Paris. And so it would only be to a council employee or the consultants directly. So it would not, no individual company information of any sort will be given to any member of the council.
So this would become part of top-line research?
Yes.
And individual components of it would remain confidential?
Absolutely. and will not be available to anyone on the council itself or any other members.
So I guess in the first order of business for you is to promote the fact that there is transparency throughout before you actually talk about the issue.
So, and that's a key issue of getting the data, and at the end of the day, the studies, the industry database, the profile and the economic impact studies will stand or fall on the information that we get back. If people won't give us the information, then it's all a waste of time. It won't work.
Other issues? Any
other issues?
Yeah.
What other things are we doing? Tied in, I suppose, and it flows from the information from the studies. We've started setting up an industry library and resource centre based in the office in Paris, which we will try and we will aim to have much of it online. So there, we're looking for, and I'm asking through this interview, asking companies to provide information to the resource centre. Send us your reports, send us your company reports, your research reports that are in the public domain, copies of them. We want to get all of that material. And so we're asking people to send. I'm sure people have lots of material that they've accumulated over the years. We can now provide an area where that can sit and be available going forward. So it can be available to researchers, to students, to people within the industry, to young people in the industry, joining the industry who are perhaps doing, management studies, doing MBAs or whatever. This is going to be a resource for them to go and get material on. And we don't have something like that in the industry. I remember myself doing research years ago for an MBA, and it took a huge amount of effort to gather the information. And unless you knew people, you'd never get it. And again, as an industry, that's ridiculous for us. 60 billion or whatever size we are, we should be big enough and mature enough to be able to say, there's the place where all the information is and anyone can access it. So that's already underway, and Kay has worked out a system for the library for accessing the different information and dividing it into all the relevant sectors and indexing and so on. The other area that I think is an obvious area for the council is the area of education. And again, as an industry, every industry at the end of the day needs people to be to have training standards set. They need to have a system whereby people can be educated into the industry. Because the industry is unique. It's a retailing industry, and there's lots of retailing industries around the world. But as you know, we have, as an industry, in our form of retailing, it's a unique enough channel. And there are very significant challenges, and we've talked about some of them there a few minutes ago. So I think the area of education, of providing, standards for training, providing an accreditation process that's academically sound and based. And recognised academically, which would provide young people coming into the industry the means to achieve
quality X level.
Certain levels of quality, and also to achieve, degrees or diplomas or whatever it is, that are recognised in the industry, everywhere in this industry, and that when people say, I have X, they say, yeah, well, we know that, and that's sound, because that's accredited to the industry's education body.
The very existence of such an animal would also doubtless extend the credibility of the industry itself, wouldn't it?
Of course it would, yeah. And I think if you look around, most industries have some body or other that's there to promote education, to promote the standards of management standards, sales standards in the industry. And it's not, the objective is not to take on the actual training. That's the responsibility of companies and around the world. But it's to provide, for instance, a register of trainers, of management trainers, who we know are good and can deliver results and are registered, as it were, with the industry. So there's a whole lot of activities there that I think the council has an obvious role to play in, and we're hoping at the board meeting tomorrow. Now, we're getting some proposals on that to sort of hopefully start that process. It's not something that can be set up quickly. We have to work out arrangements with say, academic institutions, talk to universities around the world, because you need to have universities and academic institutions in different regions around the world all partnering into this. And you have to set up a proper governance system for it. That's credible. So, say people within the industry maybe at a HR level, human resource areas, and some of those, maybe people in those areas in the industry can be pulled into this and use their expertise to develop this academy, if you want, for want of a better word.
Well, that sounds absolutely great, and and I really do wish you luck with that, because I think that would be very good.
Absolutely.
Now, this is not going to come free of charge.
Nothing does.
There's no free lunches here like anywhere else.
No.
It's funding for Duty-Free World Council. I mean, how's that looking? Is it sufficient? Do you need more? Without naming names of people, where do you think some areas could do a bit more? Or please talk to the world, because we need this funding.
All associations and all association work costs money, and there's no way around that. It doesn't happen for nothing. So the council at this stage, has a modest budget based on the regional associations pay a membership fee.
I mean, is it confidential? I mean, you can't say that you want everybody to be transparent in the industry, and then if I ask you, how much money have you got and how much do you need? Well,
put it this way: with the membership fee structure that's there, and if you like, the problem, and it's always been a challenge for all the associations, is that the associations that are members of the council, in many cases, are not. They in turn are, in some cases, I should say, have other associations members of them.
Right.
So there's a sequence of fees coming up, right?
Okay.
And in other cases, then their ability to generate a lot of revenue is very limited. Mm-hmm. So there's a fee structure that's related to the size of the associations and the sort of membership numbers and things like that. But yeah, the overall budget for the association is in the order of about 70 or 80,000 on fees.
Is that going to be enough?
No, it isn't.
Right.
There's no question of that.
Do you mind me asking you?
At the moment,
even if you do mind me asking, I'm going to ask you what would be enough?
What would be enough? I don't know. At the end of the day, probably to do all the things we've talked about.
We've got to be talking $250,000.
We're talking about $250,000, 300,000, 400,000.
It must be.
That sort of number.
Yeah.
And that's something maybe that's, let's see how that evolves. Because the challenge is, how do you generate that money?
Exactly.
And you can't say, well, you need, associations have to pay X amount. They're not able to do that. That's just the reality.
So
they simply cannot do that. So it's a challenge, and it's something that we in the council itself we've discussed in the last few months. We need to do some brainstorming around where can we access funds. The study that we're launching into now, we're funding that through the council, through ETRC is putting a particular lump of money into that because of the fact that the initial study is European based, and obviously we will in ETRC will have a lot of use from that, and also TFWA are putting some extra money into it as well, and that's how I've put together a package of funding for that particular study. But going forward, in the education field, in all these other areas that we talked about, we will need money, and that'll be something that we need to figure out how we're going to do that.
So you're going to be making your case why you need money on a case-by-case basis, are you? As you look at various projects within.
Well, let's say, yeah. I mean, like all these things, they have to grow. So you start off with doing it piecemeal.
Of course.
And we did the same in ETRC some years ago, if you remember. We were always, every time something came up, we had to again go looking for money.
Remember it.
But then we put in a structure that has generated funds, and now we can plan ahead, and we have a solid base of income which allows that to happen, and we're not spending half of our time or most of our time looking for money.
It also makes you quicker on your feet, doesn't it, when something happens?
But, that'll happen with the council as well.
So you're optimistic?
I am, absolutely. And I think it's, as I said, what's really made me optimistic is the fact that from all the contacts I've had over that since March, the associations are committed to it, and they're enthusiastic about it. And I think that's the key thing to this. And once it has the support, I mean, that's, if you like, the associations together represent most of the industry. So with that level of support, I think we will work out a way forward which will enable the council to do its work, produce the results, produce the materials for the industry, and get the necessary finance to do it.
Well, Frank, I'm sorry to say that we've run out of time. I would like to thank you very much indeed for such a comprehensive addressing of so many issues. I would love to be able to come back in 6 months and ask you how it's all going there. And I think
why not?
Everybody in the industry would join with me in wishing you luck in what you're trying to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.